Hello everyone, I'm here to talk about part 3 of my V2k experience. I left off stating how I was going to talk about why I didn't go public with it and why I didn't just vocalize it to everyone. And actually in reality is that I did try a couple of times. And every time I tried, I felt like I got shot down because I remember when I was 15 years old, I told this girl that was supposedly my friend, like that I thought people were reading my mind, and she straight up told me that it did not exist. And I remember also telling my family, and either they didn't believe me or they didn't acknowledge that it exists. And bear in mind, this is when I felt like everyone knew about it because I remember they were like, "Oh, she's an act," or "She's a tweaker." So I felt like it was relatively. I felt like a lot of people did know about it. I don't know. I just felt like I was shot down a couple of times, and after being shot down, it's kind of hard to talk about it because I don't know how other people would react, in a sense. So yeah, so that's what happened. And also, I remember like I told a psychologist back then. I don't think that was a wise decision, even though I don't regret it. And because you probably thought that there's something wrong with me, because I told her that I was hearing voices in my head, and I felt like people were reading my mind, which was actually in fact happening. But of course, to a psychologist, it doesn't make sense. I don't regret it at all. I still have the medical records, but it's something that when I look back, look forward in life, when I do speak about it more publicly as I get older and more mature, that I can use this. I guess I don't know. I can just use this as experience and a stepping stone. But um, yeah, I remember like when I do want to talk about it, every single time I thought about speaking about it, like against these creeps who like try to beam a high acoustic sound, but in a sense try to control me, try to stop me from doing it. And also I remember being afraid because I wasn't sure what people would say, because it was like, oh, it was back then. It's like, oh, she's an act, or she's, I guess, a tweaker and whatnot. And I wasn't sure if people wanted to believe me or whatnot, or if people were just lying to my face. Yeah, so I don't know. I still have I have problems with it. Up to this very day, I still have problems with it. But as I get older, I feel like I'm getting more mature, and I'm just growing into myself, and I'm more able to vocalize it. Hopefully, I'll be more vocal in the future. That's what I'm going for. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing this right now. Also, and also, what else? What else? Yeah. So yeah, I remember like I feel like people were saying like, oh, like why didn't she act like she knows? Like why isn't she crying hysterically, or why isn't she like screaming? Oh, I think someone's reading my mind. But in reality, if they're in that situation, they'll probably react the same way as me. Like no one wants to be in a awkward situation where like there's no set in stone reaction to that. Like yeah, it could have cried all day, but that wouldn't have helped me in life. It was like, yeah, people say, oh, she's crying, but it doesn't really mean that people would have helped me in a sense. And I don't know, it just felt like there's no like I didn't know how to react to the situation. Honestly, it's overwhelming, and I felt like I was really numb. So for me, being numb, it's hard to have a lot of emotions. Right now, I feel like I'm less numb and I'm more emotional towards my past experiences than I was then. Because I remember I didn't feel anything. I was just completely numb. And I actually thank God for it, because it would have been overwhelming if I actually felt all those emotions. I don't know. I guess I was in survival mode. So just think of just day like this. Just think to survive day in and day out. Just that's all. I was just focusing on the next day, and I was completely numb. Right now, I'm more emotional, and maybe that's why I'm more vocal, because I actually have time to actually think about everything, versus back then when it was just overwhelming. I was thinking so many crazy thoughts, and I couldn't control my thoughts. On top of it, I felt like people were talking about me, about what I was thinking. It was just so overwhelming that I felt like I just became numb, and that's why it wasn't very, and it seemed very emotional. It's probably because I wasn't very emotional. I was just completely numb. And on top of it, I didn't want to stand out any more than I did. So I tried to be like try to behave as normally as possible, which in a sense may come off odd, being that I was in a very awful situation and trying to behave normally. But in a sense that it made me feel safer, because I didn't want to feel. I really felt like I stood out, because I felt like people were reading my mind, and talking about me, so I already feel like I stood out, so I wanted to feel like I belonged, or I wanted to feel like I was normal again before it happened. So that's one of the reasons why I try to behave normally, even though it probably doesn't make sense to other people, but it makes sense to me, and it still makes sense to me now. And so part four would be about me talking about the mind games these creeps played on me and trying to mess with my head, and also to go back with this why I didn't act like I know, or in the sense why didn't I vocalize, like talk about it. It's for like a conundrum of reasons. Like um I don't know. It's I don't know. It's just very scary just to not know how people react to such a awkward situation. And it's very like I feel like people are hypocrites because it's easy for them to judge and say, oh yeah, if I were in her situation, I would cry. Very hypocritical because in a sense if they're in my situation, honestly I feel like they'll react the same way I reacted. It's so easy for them to say, oh, if I was in her situation I would be crying hysterically. I would just I'm telling everyone, oh, I felt like people read my mind. I don't know why she doesn't act like she knows, but in reality they don't know how they react because they're not in my situation. And I find that very hypocritical. But I'll finish this off. Thank you so much for listening to me. All right, bye and have a great day.